The promise of transformation beckoned, a siren song of self-improvement that echoed through the corridors of my mind. I had stumbled upon a list, an innocuous collection of words that claimed to hold the key to unlocking a better version of myself. 11 toxic habits, it proclaimed, stood between me and the life I yearned for. As I scanned the items, a familiar weight settled in my chest, the recognition of behaviors I had long battled, demons I thought I had vanquished. But there, nestled among the expected vices, was a single entry that sent a chill down my spine. It was a habit I had never considered toxic, one that I had cultivated with pride and worn like a badge of honor. In that moment, I realized that the journey ahead would be far more treacherous than I had imagined, a labyrinth of self-discovery that would challenge everything I thought I knew about myself. The list seemed straightforward at first glance: procrastination, negative self-talk, excessive social media use, the usual suspects in the lineup of self-sabotage. But as I delved deeper, I found myself confronting aspects of my personality that I had long justified as strengths. The toxic habit that had caught me off guard was one I had always considered a virtue: the relentless pursuit of perfection. For years, I had prided myself on my attention to detail, my unwavering standards, and my refusal to settle for anything less than excellence. It was the driving force behind my accomplishments, the fuel that propelled me through sleepless nights and grueling work sessions. How could something that had brought me so far be labeled as toxic? As I grappled with this revelation, I couldn't help but reflect on the path that had led me to this crossroads. The memories flooded back, a torrent of moments where my perfectionism had exacted a heavy toll. I recalled the relationships strained by my impossibly high expectations, the opportunities missed because I deemed my efforts not quite good enough, and the constant state of anxiety that accompanied my ceaseless striving. The weight of these realizations pressed down upon me, a suffocating blanket of regret and self-doubt. Yet, amidst the turmoil, a small voice whispered of hope, the possibility of change, of growth, of a life unburdened by the chains of perfectionism. With trembling hands, I reached for my journal, determined to confront this toxic habit head-on. As I began to write, the words flowed like a cathartic river, carrying with them years of pent-up emotions and unacknowledged truths. I wrote of the times when my pursuit of perfection had robbed me of joy, of the countless moments of beauty I had missed while fixating on minor flaws. The pages filled with anecdotes of friendships lost to my critical nature, of creative projects abandoned because they didn't meet my lofty standards, of the perpetual dissatisfaction that colored even my greatest achievements. As I poured my heart onto the page, I felt a shift within myself, a loosening of the rigid expectations that had governed my life for so long. The act of acknowledging my perfectionism as a toxic habit, rather than a virtue, was both terrifying and liberating. It was as if I had been wearing a mask for years, one that I had believed was my true face, only to discover that it had been suffocating me all along. The prospect of removing this mask filled me with equal parts excitement and dread. Who would I be without the driving force of perfectionism? Could I still achieve greatness without pushing myself to the brink of exhaustion? These questions swirled in my mind as I continued to explore the other toxic habits on the list. Each one resonated with me in some way, illuminating patterns of behavior that had long gone unchecked. The habit of comparing myself to others, for instance, had always lurked in the shadows of my perfectionism, fueling my relentless drive to be the best. As I examined this tendency, I realized how much energy I had wasted measuring my worth against the carefully curated lives of others. Social media, once a source of inspiration, now revealed itself as a breeding ground for envy and self-doubt. Another toxic habit that struck a chord was the tendency to dwell on past mistakes. I had always justified this as a form of self-reflection, a way to learn from my failures and avoid repeating them. But as I delved deeper into the impact of this habit, I saw how it had paralyzed me, keeping me tethered to moments long gone instead of embracing the present and future. The weight of these past missteps had become a burden I carried with me always, coloring my perception of new opportunities and relationships. As I worked my way through the list, a pattern began to emerge. Each toxic habit was, in its own way, a manifestation of fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. This realization hit me like a thunderbolt, illuminating the core of my struggles with blinding clarity. The perfectionism I had clung to for so long was not a tool for success, but a shield I had fashioned to protect myself from these deep-seated fears. It was a revelation both painful and profound, forcing me to confront the vulnerability I had spent a lifetime trying to avoid. With this newfound understanding, I felt a mix of emotions washing over me: grief for the time lost to these toxic habits, anger at the societal pressures that had reinforced them, and a glimmer of hope for the possibility of change. I realized that breaking free from these patterns would require more than just willpower. It would demand a fundamental shift in my perspective and a willingness to embrace imperfection and uncertainty. The journey ahead seemed daunting, but for the first time in years, I felt a sense of excitement bubbling up within me, the thrill of potential transformation. As I continued to reflect on the list of toxic habits, I found myself drawn to the teachings of Stoicism, a philosophy that had always intrigued me but which I had never fully embraced. The words of Marcus Aurelius echoed in my mind: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." I began to see how the Stoic principles of focusing on what is within our control and accepting the rest with equanimity could be powerful tools in combating these toxic habits. With renewed determination, I decided to tackle each habit one by one, starting with my perfectionism. I set out to challenge my all-or-nothing thinking, consciously embracing the concept of good enough in various aspects of my life. It was a struggle at first, every fiber of my being resisting the idea of submitting work that wasn't polished to a high sheen. But as I pushed through the discomfort, I began to notice subtle shifts in my mindset. The world didn't come crashing down when I sent an email with a minor typo, and my colleagues didn't recoil in horror when I presented an idea that wasn't fully formed. As I practiced letting go of my perfectionist tendencies, I found myself with more time and mental energy to invest in other areas of personal growth. I turned my attention to the toxic habit of negative self-talk, that insidious inner voice that had been my constant companion for as long as I could remember. Armed with the Stoic principle of distinguishing between what is in our power and what is not, I began to challenge the validity of my self-critical thoughts. Was I really a failure because of one setback? Did a moment of awkwardness in a social situation truly define my worth as a person? The process of reframing my inner dialogue was slow and often frustrating. There were days when the old patterns of thought seemed insurmountable, when the weight of self-doubt threatened to crush my resolve. But I persevered, drawing strength from the words of Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. I began to view my negative thoughts not as absolute truths, but as fleeting impressions to be examined and, if necessary, discarded. This shift in perspective was subtle at first, but its effects rippled through every aspect of my life. Challenging my negative self-talk reduced my tendency to dwell on past mistakes. It was as if I was untangling a complex knot, each loosened thread making the next easier to unravel. The process was far from linear, with setbacks and moments of doubt punctuating my progress. But through it all, I clung to the Stoic idea of focusing on the process rather than the outcome. One particularly challenging habit to overcome was my addiction to busyness, the compulsion to fill every moment with activity, as if constant motion could stave off the existential questions that lurked in moments of stillness. This habit had long been intertwined with my perfectionism, fueling a relentless drive to achieve and improve. As I worked to address it, I found myself face to face with a fear of inadequacy that had been driving me all along. The prospect of slowing down, of creating space in my life for reflection and simply being, was terrifying. It was during this phase of my journey that I experienced the most profound shift in my perspective. As I forced myself to embrace moments of idleness, To resist the urge to fill every silence with noise or activity, I began to reconnect with a part of myself that had long been neglected. In the quiet spaces between tasks and obligations, I rediscovered the simple joys that I had been too busy to notice. The play of sunlight on leaves, the comforting rhythm of my own breath, the subtle flavors of a meal savored without distraction. This rediscovery of presence brought with it a newfound appreciation for the Stoic concept of amor fati, love of fate, or the embrace of everything that happens as necessary and beneficial. I began to see how even the toxic habits I had been working to overcome had played a role in shaping me, in bringing me to this moment of awakening. Rather than berate myself for the time wasted in these patterns, I chose to view them as necessary steps on my path to growth and self-awareness. As I continued to work through the list of toxic habits, I found myself approaching a turning point, a moment that would test everything I had learned and force me to confront the deepest roots of my fears and insecurities. Little did I know that this challenge would come from an unexpected source, one that would shake the very foundations of my newfound understanding and push me to the limits of my commitment to change. The catalyst for this profound shift came in the form of a professional opportunity that, on the surface, seemed like a dream come true. A prestigious company had reached out, offering me a position that aligned perfectly with my skills and ambitions. It was the kind of role I had always aspired to, one that promised recognition, influence, and the chance to make a real impact in my field. In the past, I would have jumped at the opportunity without hesitation, seeing it as validation of my worth and a chance to prove my excellence to the world. But as I sat with the offer, turning it over in my mind, I felt an unfamiliar hesitation. The old me would have seen only the potential for success and achievement, but my journey of self-discovery had opened my eyes to other considerations. I found myself questioning not just whether I could excel in the role, but whether it aligned with my values and would contribute to my overall well-being. The company's reputation for a high-pressure, competitive environment that rewarded long hours and self-sacrifice gave me pause. As I grappled with the decision, I realized that this was a crucial test of my commitment to overcoming my toxic habits. The role seemed tailor-made to feed my perfectionism, my need for external validation, and my addiction to busyness. It was an alluring siren song, promising the kind of success and recognition I had always craved. But I knew now that these cravings were rooted in insecurity and fear, not in a genuine desire for fulfillment and growth. The internal struggle was intense. Part of me still yearned for the prestige and sense of accomplishment that the position offered. I could almost taste the satisfaction of proving myself in such a challenging environment, of finally silencing the doubts that had plagued me for so long. But another part of me, the part that had been nurtured by my recent journey of self-discovery, recoiled at the thought of re-entering a world that would reinforce my old, harmful patterns. As I wrestled with the decision, I turned once again to the teachings of Stoicism for guidance. I recalled the words of Seneca, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." This simple yet profound statement cut to the heart of my dilemma. Was I choosing from a place of abundance and self-acceptance, or from a place of lack and insecurity? The answer, I realized, would determine not just the course of my career, but the trajectory of my personal growth. In a moment of clarity, I understood that declining the offer would be the ultimate test of my newfound principles. It would mean choosing personal growth and well-being over external markers of success. It would mean trusting in my own worth, rather than seeking validation from others. Most importantly, it would mean embracing the uncertainty of a less defined path, one that prioritized authenticity over achievement at any cost. With trembling hands but a resolute heart, I composed my response to the company, declining their offer. As I hit send, I felt a complex mix of emotions: fear, relief, sadness, and an unexpected sense of liberation. I had turned down what once would have been my dream job, and in doing so, I had chosen myself. Not the idealized version of myself that I had long pursued, but the authentic, imperfect, growing version that I was learning to accept and nurture. The aftermath of this decision brought its own challenges. There were moments of doubt, when I questioned whether I had made the right choice. The voices of friends and family, well-meaning but steeped in conventional notions of success, added to my uncertainty. "Are you sure you want to pass up such an amazing opportunity?" they asked, their concern tinged with disbelief. Each time I faced these questions, I had to reaffirm my commitment to my new path, to remind myself of the reasons behind my choice. In the weeks that followed, I found myself navigating unfamiliar emotional terrain. Without the clear goal of career advancement to focus on, I was forced to confront the question of what truly mattered to me. What did I want my life to look like, now that I was no longer defining success solely in terms of professional achievements? It was a period of intense self-reflection, one that often left me feeling vulnerable and uncertain. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, I began to notice subtle shifts in my day-to-day experience. Free from the constant pressure to prove myself, I found moments of unexpected joy and peace. I rediscovered old hobbies that had been abandoned in the relentless pursuit of career success. I spent more time with loved ones, cultivating deeper connections and finding richness in shared experiences rather than in individual accomplishments. Perhaps most significantly, I began to approach my work with a newfound sense of purpose and creativity. Freed from the tyranny of perfectionism, I found myself taking risks, exploring new ideas, and finding satisfaction in the process of learning and growth rather than just in the end results. My colleagues noticed the change, commenting on my increased openness to collaboration and my ability to bounce back from setbacks with resilience and good humor. As I continued to reflect on my journey, I realized that the list of toxic habits that had initially sparked this transformation was just the beginning. The real work lay not in simply cutting out these behaviors, but in cultivating new, healthier patterns of thought and action. It wasn't enough to stop comparing myself to others. I needed to develop genuine self-acceptance and compassion. It wasn't just about avoiding negative self-talk. It was about fostering a kind and encouraging inner dialogue. This realization led me to expand my exploration beyond Stoicism, incorporating insights from other philosophical traditions and modern psychology. I began to practice mindfulness meditation, learning to observe my thoughts and emotions without judgment. I explored the concept of self-compassion, gradually softening the harsh inner critic that had driven me for so long. Each new practice added another layer to my understanding, helping me build a more nuanced and flexible approach to life's challenges. As I reflect on this transformative journey, I am filled with a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the initial list that sparked this change, for the ancient wisdom of Stoicism that guided me, and for the inner strength I discovered along the way. But most of all, I am grateful for the opportunity to share this story with you, dear reader. Your willingness to accompany me through these reflections, to witness my struggles and triumphs, has given purpose to my experiences. This journey of overcoming toxic habits and embracing a more authentic way of living is far from over. Each day brings new challenges and opportunities for growth, but I face them now with a sense of curiosity and compassion, rather than fear and self-judgment. The path ahead is not always clear, but I've learned to find beauty in the uncertainty, to trust in the process of becoming. As I conclude this video, I'm reminded of the words of Marcus Aurelius: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This simple yet profound truth has been the cornerstone of my transformation. It's a reminder that while we cannot control everything that happens to us, we always have the power to choose our response. To you, who have journeyed with me through these words, I extend an invitation. If this story has resonated with you, if you found yourself nodding in recognition or feeling a spark of inspiration, I encourage you to continue this exploration. Subscribe to our channel for more insights, reflections, and practical wisdom on navigating life's challenges with grace and authenticity. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your willingness to engage with these ideas. May your own journey be filled with insight, courage, and moments of profound transformation.